いつか僕らの上をすれすれに通り過ぎてったあの飛行機を不思議なくらいに覚えてる意味もないのになぜか不甲斐なくて泣いた。
Alright, what's going on everyone? Welcome back to another video. So I want to be talking about basically two things. Number one is what is the game of League of Legends? And secondly, kind of my thoughts and experience playing the game for the past few years, and I guess you can call it a conclusion that I've come to. So the way I would describe League of Legends is kind of like a mix between chess and real-time strategy games, RTS, right? And I'll explain what that means. So in chess, you have different pieces, and each piece has its own unique function and ability, if you want to call it that, right? So for instance, the castle or the rook can move, horizontally or vertically any number of spaces, right? No other piece in the game of chess can do that. So in League of Legends, you have characters called champions. Each champion has 4 unique abilities that no other champion has, and each player on a team controls 1 champion, right? So 5 versus 5, 5 champions versus 5 other champions. And when you're playing competitive, ranked, etc., there have to be unique champions. You can't have the same champions on each team. Now the real-time strategy or RTS part comes into play because while you're controlling the champion, your view is not limited to just that champion, right? What I mean by that is that your camera view and view of the battle arena that you are in, the map, is not restricted to where the champion is. So your champion could be on one side of the map, but you could be looking at another side of the map. The reason that's important is because it opens up this layer of macro gameplay or playing the map. So I'll try to explain this in a little bit more detail, and hopefully it'll tie in all the points that I was making earlier. So the objective of every game is to destroy the enemy base. The enemy base has layers of turrets, so obviously you want to destroy the turrets. But because the turrets are very strong, and this might sound, I guess, a little cold-blooded, but you want to let your minions soak up the damage from the turrets so that you and your team can destroy the turrets. The second thing is that there are these power-ups on the map that only one team at a time can claim. And these power-ups either empower you or empower your minions. And either way, this is a very useful power-up to have in an objective game where you need to destroy the turrets and eventually destroy the base. Now the macro part comes into play because you need to manage your minions, make sure that you have minions to take a tower, but you also need to make sure that you're not giving up the objectives for free. So what I mean is that if your whole team is sitting in a base, then the enemy can easily take the power up without having to fight for it, literally. To give a specific example to try and really drive the point home, one classic example of split pushing is that you send 4 people to defend, a tower or maybe a power up, while you send 1 person on the team to go and try to take as many of the turrets, structures, and maybe even the base if possible. So this leaves the enemy team a choice. How do they handle the split? Do they send 1 person to defend from the splitter? If so, if the defender dies, then that 1 person who's splitting can actually, take much more than if he was just on his own, because at least if they don't send anyone, it's a 5 versus 4 and they'll have a numbers advantage in the upcoming fight. But even after comparing it with chess and strategy, at the end of the game, it's still a video game, right? So you still need to be technical and precise with what you're doing in the game. And I think that's where a lot of the satisfaction comes for a lot of people, is because the game will reward you for your technicality and your precision. And I think the game really reflects that, because 99% of the time you aren't accidentally gonna win, right? You win because you had, the precision in controlling your specific character or your champion, or your team had very good decisions made around the map. To add to that, games are quite long, I guess, relatively speaking to other games. So you could be playing one game for 20, 30, 40, sometimes even more minutes. And winning those kind of games makes you feel like you deliberately did the right thing for that amount of time. And I think there's a certain level of satisfaction and accomplishment that comes with, being good at something for that length of time to win that length of game. A quick comparison would be like, say you play a game of tic-tac-toe, the game is over in a minute, and yeah, it feels nice to win, but it's not as strenuous, and because of that, I think the feeling of either success or defeat is elevated. So that kind of sums up how I would describe League of Legends. And before I can move on to talk about my conclusion or what I've learned from playing League of Legends over the past few years, I want to first mention that Pinoy, Yasuo/Mo's editor, he actually recently made a video on this same topic, and I like the way he presented some of his points, so I'm just going to leave that video down below, and that'll just lead us into my overall thoughts on the game. Alright, look, so I'm out here, I'm looking at the timeline. I know I've spent a lot of time explaining what League of Legends is, and I thought I would spend at least a few minutes talking about my experience, but honestly, I feel like I can sum up my experience very quickly, so to just keep it simple and respect everyone's time, that's what I'm going to do. Playing League solo sucks. I mean, if you're still sticking around, I can talk more, but basically the whole premise, everything I'm going to say is going to be based off of that one statement. So stick around if you want, or if you're me in the future, stick around for that one extra view, but otherwise we're going to continue with the more detailed explanations. I guess the one thing that bothers me the most, and I know a lot of other players too, is that, and I don't know if this is something that's exclusive to North America, but it's that a lot of players you run into simply don't care about the game. They don't care about winning. They don't care if they ruin your experience. So you could be, committed to playing just a few games a day, doing your best, playing the characters you know how to play. But other players are going to be like, I don't care. I'm going to play a character I don't know how to play. I'm going to play a role I don't know how to play. I'm going to play a role I do know how to play, but I don't care if we win or lose because this isn't my main account. And things like that really ruin the quality of the experience of climbing in a solo environment. And tied to that recently, or I guess when I stopped playing solo, is that I started running into a lot of people who would go AFK on my teams, and because of that we would just lose games. And I could have worked hard to win games before that, but multiple games in a row or several, majority of my recent games I had AFKs, and all the work that I invested into winning games is suddenly gone because someone decided that they didn't want to stick around for a game and they just disconnected from their computer. And going off of that is that the games are long, so you could, win one game, lose one game, maybe get minimal gains, maybe even you go negative in your climb even though it's a 50%, but it's a lot of time for a very minimal gain, so it feels kind of like your time is not respected, I guess, in some way. The last thing I want to mention, and maybe I'll make a separate video on this at some point, is that why I got into gaming in the first place. I've been playing games for a long time, and what drew me to playing games was, having fun or exploring something new. And when I first started playing League of Legends, it was very cool to explore a game where there were so many different characters, so many different ways to play those characters. But as I started learning the game more and it got more competitive, it felt like it was more of something that I had to do rather than something I did for fun. I think playing with a group can be fine, and I do it sometimes as long as the expectations are clear, but other than that, I don't see myself going back to playing solo. If I want to play something competitive, I'll just be playing Halo 5 instead because, again, games aren't that long, and it feels like a more controlled environment where, and I'm not saying it's a perfect replacement or that it's a perfect game in general, but it just seems that there's less factors and there's less things to get upset about. So with that, I want to thank you all for watching. If you want to share your experience about playing League either solo or in our group, please let me know in the comments, and I'll catch you guys in the next video. Take care.